G'day and welcome to episode 4 of Trent 365. Today is Monday the 4th of December, and today I want to talk about spa trends. Because every year around about this time the lists start to appear, the top 20 spa trends for 2018. And I've got a couple of issues about those lists, those trends if you like. The first issue is that in most cases it's just an individual or an organization or perhaps a company that is coming up with that list. There's no empirical evidence or no data necessarily to back up a lot of these trends. And just because Trent says that these are the top spa trends for 2018 doesn't make it true. So I think we need to be aware of that. The other issue I have, and maybe this is a bigger issue, is that a lot of times we're not talking about trends at all, we're talking about fads. Because every year the list seems to be completely different. The top 20 from this year is completely different from the top 20 of last year. And a trend by definition is something that comes over time, as opposed to a fad which kind of comes and goes a lot more quickly. So logically you would assume that the list that was the top 20 last year, there would be a couple of players in that list next year as well. But that's not the case. So that just says to me that we're talking about fads and not trends. And what's the difference? Does it really even matter? Well, it doesn't if we're keeping these things in the back of our mind and just keeping them in mind as we go through the year. But the problem is, spas sometimes respond to these reports, these trends lists, and make investments. They'll go out and buy inventory. They'll go out and buy a new machine. Sometimes I've even seen spas that make a renovation based on the back of that trend report. And that's where it becomes dangerous if it turns out to be a fad and not a trend. Because after 6 months your investment now is sitting there, nobody's buying that service or that treatment anymore or that product, and all of a sudden you've invested all this money that's just going nowhere. It's sitting on a shelf. So I think it's important to keep in mind as we go into what I call the spa trend season, that number one, who is saying this is a trend? Are they a voice of authority, or do they maybe have some vested interest? If Trent was to say that podcasts are the next big trend for 2018 for spas, that would probably be a little bit biased, because I just want people to listen to my podcast. I've got no data to back that up as far as spas are concerned. So keep in mind who's producing the trend, who's the author of the trend. And number two, just keep in mind whether we're talking about a real trend or is it just a fad. And that's okay if it's a fad. You can still react to that fad and make some extra revenue during that period. But just be careful if you start investing in what is a fad and not a trend. Thanks for listening. Really appreciate your time. You can head on over to iTunes and subscribe so that you get the update every day, or anywhere else that you get your podcast for that matter. Leave a rating or review if you like. Let me know if you've got any comments. I'd appreciate it. Thanks for listening. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.